My name's Lawrence Dumpit. I was born March 23rd, 1963. Okay, my family background, I'm ethnic Filipino. Both my parents are from the Philippines. They migrated here, so you can say I'm second generation Filipino American here. Um, Basically, current marital status, I'm married, have one wife and one boy, one daughter right now.
Great. And you're in San Diego.
And I currently reside in San Diego.
And can you spell out your last name, please?
Dumpit, Dumpit.
Okay, thank you. All right. How about your educational background? What schools did you have up to the moment when you joined the military?
Okay. Upon graduating from high school, Mira Mesa High School here in San Diego, California, I went to UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles, from 81 to 85. Then I dropped out, worked, and I went into the Army back in 1986.
I see. How many years were you at school before?
4
you
years.
joined?
4 years.
4 years. Okay, but you didn't graduate.
No, I didn't graduate.
And then you went to.
Right.
All right. So then, about your military background now? When
Yeah.
were you enlisted or drafted?
Okay, I enlisted 14th October 1986 here in San Diego, California.
All right. What kind of basic training did you have, and where was it?
Okay, my basic training was in Fort Benning, Georgia. It was from October to February, and it was infantry training, which is infantry training. That's basically what it is.
What military, can you tell me the details about your military? So your unit, rank, specialty, and so on?
Okay, I was in the United States Army. I was in the infantry, which basically to fight the enemy on the ground. And that was my specialty. I got out of the Army as a staff sergeant.
All right. So now, so when did you get out of the Army?
October 31st, 2008 from Korea.
Got it.
I retired out of Korea.
Got it. Now let's talk about you being in Korea. When, where, and how did you leave for Korea?
Okay, I left Korea. I flew from San Diego to Seattle. We got onto a civilian plane with military charter, so everybody on the plane was military. We landed at Ulsan Air Base in Korea. Then from Ulsan Air Base, we were separated. Some stayed in Seoul, some went south of Korea. My group, we went north toward the DMZ, Camp Casey, Korea.
I see. So, and then where did you serve in Korea?
I served at Camp Casey, Korea. It was with my first unit there was the 1st Battalion, 503rd Infantry, 2nd Infantry Division. The town in Camp Casey was near Dongdaesan.
Ah, Dongducheon.
Dongdaesan. I see it spelled different way, with the T or with the D. So.
I see. What were your duties in that?
Okay,
division?
in that unit, I was a anti-armor section leader. My job was to destroy enemy tanks. That's basically what my sole mission was.
And how long were you there for?
My first tour of duty was from 1997 to 2000. So it would be May 1997 to 2000 May.
Okay. So that was your first tour?
That's my first tour.
And then?
I went on a subsequent tour, 2004, May to 2008, into October 31st.
Got it. Were your duties different in the two different?
Yes, the first one, I was in a light infantry unit, air assault infantry, which is basically helicopter or light. My second tour, I was with a mechanized unit, which dealt with armored vehicles, rally, and tanks.
I see. Thank you. So now let's talk about your experience in Korea. Before you went there, did you know anything about Korea?
No, not much. I only know much from soldiers who did their tour over there. And from what they told me, the only thing they could tell me that we love bulgogi, kimchi they didn't care too much, and the tour duty was really, really hard, very stressful for them. And that's pretty much what I knew about Korea, though. And it was like, some of the guys who've been there, it wasn't as modernized as it is now. So they still say when I first heard about that, some of them were still wearing like pajamas. They call it pajamas. They weren't westernized, as they would say. They were still wearing, some of them were still wearing that pajamas type outfit out there.
What is your knowledge of the Korean War and the Korean War veterans?
Korean War, my knowledge of Korean, I studied Korean War, is that North Korea attacked South Korea. It started a war, then the Chinese got involved. Well, Americans got involved when the North was about to take over South Korea. Americans got involved. We pushed them all the way back to the Chinese border. Then the Chinese came in, pushed us back south. Now we're at a stalemate. And as for the Korean veterans having served in Korea, I don't know how they fought in that war because of weather, cold weather. So I watch these Korean war movies or I watch these Korean documentary of what kind of conditions they were fighting under. And I actually lived under those conditions. I really don't know how they did it back in those days. Really hard. I gotta give them credit for that.
Where and oh no, you already talked about where and when you arrived. And when you did, what was your first impression like?
My first impression, man, this is another culture. I gotta find out what I need to know. So that's basically what I want to know. Because when we first got there, we pretty much weren't allowed to go off base. So we stayed in our camp and they gave us like a 1 week indoctrination to the Korean culture before they let us out into the Korean culture. So they gave us the do's and don'ts in Korea. Like the rules, don't do this, don't fight with the Koreans, be respectful of their culture, don't touch their women, all the basic stuff that we should know about the Korean culture. And the food, they told us about the food. Enjoy the food, tell us to go out and enjoy the culture. It's different than the United States, and just, go out and have some fun. Have a fun tour in Korea. Not as bad as they say it is.
That's good. Tell me about the places where you were stationed.
Besides Korea?
In Korea.
Oh, in Korea.
Yeah, what were they like? Like living conditions?
Oh, okay. Some of the conditions are good. Camp Casey is good. I lived in my first station, Casey. Where I lived in was not very good. It was old style World War II barracks. All the other barracks were brand new. So where I lived was pretty much old World War II barracks, one-man rooms. We all had to share a bathroom. We pretty much called it the ghetto, because it was like the worst one of all the barracks to live in. But it was better than what the Koreans had, because I seen the Koreans, how they lived, and what the Korean soldiers lived. So ours was way much better than how they lived. Because they live like sardines, They don't have separate rooms. They all live in one big room,
Right.
from what I seen.
Right. And how much were you paid?
Me, I was there as a staff sergeant, so I got paid about, at that time, $3,000 a month.
You already talked a little bit about you experiencing the culture and what you were told to expect. So can you tell us more about that? What was your experience like in the society? Maybe some Korean friends and some sightseeing experiences. What was it like?
I did a lot of sightseeing. My first tour, I went to the DMZ, signed up for a tour. Basically, I went on one before, but that was the one I actually paid for to go see. We went up there, it showed us all the sights. Went into the conference rooms. Saw where the axe murders happened with the 2 Americans, saw the original return, and then we came back. But the other sites I seen were like seeing pretty much all the castles or the palaces in Korea. And as for the culture, the food, I tried all the food over there. Yakimandu, I never seen Yakimandu here in the States. I guess it's only in Korea. Bulgogi rice, did all the buffets over there, Korean buffets. Also, I did the street vendors. I think they pop up at night, and we tried those places. Biggest thing I do remember is soju. We did drink a lot of soju in the bars over there, and we had a good party time over there.
Sounds good. How was your relationship with the Korean soldiers?
To me, I actually liked them. They were pretty good, but they're not professional soldiers. They even tell you that because they're not. Because American soldiers are enlisted. We know what we're getting into. The Korean soldiers, they don't. They're drafted. Conscript, they don't get paid much. The ones I work with were basically I would say the cream of the crop as far as education-wise, because the ones I work with were mostly from Seoul. As you say, the Sky, most of them were Seoul or from Korean or Yongsan. But mostly the ones I work with were from Seoul National University. Very smart guys. But they weren't professional soldiers, and they'll be first to tell you that. And the only problem I seen they had was they're Korean soldiers, but the ones I work with, they're with us in the American Army. They're Korean soldiers. They make rank. our American soldiers have to respect their rank because they make sergeants. But our American soldiers really don't because they know they don't have the experience that the American soldiers have. And they were forced their opinion on the Koreans. Oh, you don't know what you're doing. I'm going to listen to. But some of the Korean soldiers, they worked their way through it, so they actually earned the respect of the American soldiers. Because, we kind of tell them, hey, these guys aren't volunteers. They're drafted. They're forced to come into this thing. They have to do it. And then, American soldiers tend to appreciate that or respect that because they're not volunteers.
I see, I see. What would you say was your most difficult or dangerous moment or memory that you have? Have you been wounded while you were there?
No, basically it was just vehicle accidents over there. We're driving, especially in the Korean winters. Once the vehicle starts sliding, it does happen. But the most dangerous one is that when we were traveling in Korea, me and some guy saw a vehicle accident happening in front of us where a Korean national got killed. So it was an accident. We had to stop, try and help it out, but the guy passed away at the time, though. So that's the closest I seen where we actually seen a vehicle. It was a vehicle accident happening right in front of us. But as far as me being injured, no, it's basically just traffic accidents or during the winter time, during training, vehicles start to slide on the ice.
Yeah.
Or during a live fire range, a hot round would hit us and burn your skin. But nothing major for me.
And would you say what you just talked about, those were the most difficult situations that you encountered?
No, the weather.
Yeah, can you tell me more about that? You
The
were
weather.
saying, you having seen the Korean War documentaries, you're just amazed at how the guys back then did it.
Right.
So what was it like? What did you experience?
Well, it was cold, see, because at the time they gave us like the best cold weather gear possible. The American Army had the best cold weather gear, Gore-Tex, really thick suiting, and I was still cold, even insulated boots, and I was still freezing out there. And they gave us like the best sleeping bag that they said was out there, and I still froze in that sleeping bag because we were sleeping next to Imjin River up north during the wintertime, and I was still frozen, and it was bad. So it got so bad that they even told us to build fires out there because it was getting too cold for us. So that's why I appreciate how they survived that cold. Then when you got the monsoons, and it's raining constantly, that was even just as bad because you're just getting wet all the time. And I don't know how you can move through the mud. Vehicle gets stuck in the mud, trying to walk through the mud. That's why when I experienced firsthand, and you watch it on video on a documentary, it goes, I don't know how those guys did it back then. Today, even with all the good equipment we have, it's still difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
So you said the cold was just really unbearable. Was it kind of especially you had a hard time, or did other soldiers
Other
agree?
soldiers experienced it though. A lot of them been around too. They've been in Germany. Germany is cold, but they said, man, it's cold out here, So some guys, they're freezing. Some guys go, oh man, they don't know how they did. They all appreciate too. I don't know how these guys did it. They try to survive the cold though. I don't know how they did it. Plus, it's up in the mountains too. I don't know if you ever try to climb a mountain with ice on it. You keep on sliding down, and it's also monsooning. You try and climb a mountain too, because Korea is mostly mountainous, and it's almost like you're climbing up and you're sliding back down. It's just messy. Once you get muddy, you just don't care, wet and mud.
Then, on the other hand, were there any happy, rewarding memories from your duty?
That's rewarding because you survived that. That's actually a rewarding experience. That I did it. But probably not as tough as the guys back in the past though. But it kind of makes you tougher that you can survive something like that.
Yeah.
That's actually more. That's actually fulfilling. I could do it. I could survive in this weather. I could survive. But the most thing I really like is the camaraderie among the soldiers over there, the Koreans and the Americans. That's one thing I really cherish over there. But I would probably never see these guys again because, tour duty's short. Everyone goes their different ways. But that's one of the best things I remember is the camaraderie among the soldiers over there.
What was the impact of your service in Korea upon your life?
Well, put it in my life, and we eat a lot of Korean food now, though. We always go to Korean restaurants. I take my friends to Korean restaurants, so That's my input. I watch a lot of Korean movies now. That's the biggest input. Watch a lot of Korean movies, watch a lot of Korean TV dramas, listen to a lot of Korean music, Korean food. Um, I take part, yeah, that's one of all the cultures I really got into was Korean. Even though I've been to Germany, Egypt, all the other countries, Korean's the one I actually got interested more than all the countries I visited.
Do you think there's a reason?
I don't know. Maybe it's something I have in common with it. I'm not too sure. Because, like I said, I've been to Germany, but like I said, yeah, I haven't caught on with the food with the Germans over there. It was just bratwurst and the Korean somehow. I don't know why. I can't explain it. Maybe some down the line I'll figure it out though. Maybe because I'm Asian or from Philippines and I've got interest in that stuff though. I really can't pin it down why that culture is the one I actually pinpointed to actually get close attention to.
All right, thank you. Let's talk about now the Korean War veterans and maybe the legacy. So after you came back to the States after being in Korea, have you been back to Korea?
No, not since 2008. That's the last time. Do I wish to go back there? Yes, I do, but not in a card right now, though.
And no plans or anything yet?
Not yet, though, because there's some places in Korea I still want to see. You know, still like to go down to Busan, check that area out, and some of the national parks, though. I've been to a couple, but I think I can't name them right now, but there's a couple I'd like to visit.
Were you able to, or are you aware of Korea's simultaneous achievement of the democratization and also their economic development?
Ah, yes, I was, though. Usually through classes through here at State, though. I think I knew about it through past classes I heard. Because, you always hear how some countries have destroyed and they rose up economically and they changed their government. I know South Korea was basically a dictator-type government until they hit democracy in the mid-'80s. And they had their miracle in the Han back in the 70s, and that helped them grow.
Good. So as you know, Korea right now, it's divided and it is that way. What do you think we have to do to put a closure to it? Do you think if there were some kind of a petition where it's for ending the war officially, would you sign that petition if you were offered?
I don't know what it would do, but I would just sign it, though. I don't know what it says. I don't know what the solution is on how they would go about it, though, but I would just sign it, yes.
What do you think about the legacy of the USFK, United States Forces of Korea?
I think the legacy is they have kept the peace. Like I compare it to NATO. NATO has kept the peace in Europe until the wall fell down. Now, they didn't have a mission after that, but they had to create another mission. So USFK legacy, I would say, will be until it has kept the peace. But once USFK dissolves, it means that both Koreas either got together, reunified, because there is no reason for have a USFK. It's only set up to protect South Korea from North Korea.
Right.
So I think that's their legacy, is protecting the South Koreans from North Koreans.
What do you think about the U.S.-Korea relationship in terms of economy or military alliance?
I think economy we're tied in. I see a lot of Samsung phones here. I go on base at Miramar. A lot of Korean products in there, LG, Samsung. So I think we're tied, related pretty good. Plus, when I was in South Korea, that was the first time I actually bought my first cell phone was in South Korea. Because they had so many out there on the market when they had a boom back in the late 90s. So I think we're tied in pretty good. Plus, I see a lot of cars on the street, Hyundais, Kias, here in America. So I think, we're tied in. As far as militarily, we're tied in because we're there to defend South Korea from North Korea.
What kind of contribution do you think you have made to Korea?
My contribution, I served in Korea. I helped defend South Korea from North Korean aggression. That's my contribution, I say. Kept the peace.
And thank you for that.
All right.
Would you support for the reunification of this divided Korea?
I would support it, because if we support unification, that means USFK is no longer needed and American forces could pull out.
And would you support the neutrality of reunified Korea if it happens?
Yeah, again, man, USAK forces could pull out then, because if it's neutral, there's really no need for USFK to be there. So it's a neutral country, shouldn't be no armed conflict going on there. Do I see it's feasible or reality? Probably in the future, maybe not my lifetime, maybe down the line.
What are your perceptions on Korea, the culture, Korean people, and the Korean society?
I enjoy the Korean culture. I think Koreans are known for their toughness. I mean, I seen it back in the LJ riots. The Koreans were protecting their property. I see that in Korea too. They're pretty tough guys, especially with the cabs. When I took cabs over there, they demand money. And when I go shopping, older people bump you out of the way. So I mean, they told us don't when we first got in there, accept that that's their culture. Old people gotta have their way, and I think it's I think it's great though, really though.
And lastly, do you have any message that you want to say to the younger generation?
What, Koreans or?
Sure. In terms of all this, we're talking about the Korean War, and the legacy now that the Korean War veterans have created.
Yeah, I thought hard about that. They should remember the past, because they should go to the National War Museum down in Seoul, because they don't know how rough it was after the Korean War, the whole country was devastated. And once in a while, when we're in training, we'll run across old Korean soldiers or old Korean people who remember the war, and they come and thank us when we're on the field. All the young guys, they don't understand, We know you guys helped us, and they appreciate it that we were there to help them. So I just think they need to remember that back in the days, that the country was devastated. And some of the old people, they do remember the Americans coming in and helping them out, but I don't know if the next generation appreciate that. They want us out. But, some of the older ones would come up and thank us and go, oh, yeah, the young kids don't understand, If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be here anymore, though. So I think they shouldn't forget their past, but they should move forward, too, though, at the same time, though.
All right, thank you. Oh, can I ask you about your shirt and your hat?
Okay, these are hats that we had in Korea. The reason why they're made, they're cheap,
So first rock,
Yeah.
and you have this pin on the side.
Yeah, regimental crest of the 503rd. And these are jackets that our unit made. That was my rank when I was over there, Staff Sergeant Dumpit. And this is our unit crest, first rock. And we got the 2nd Infantry Division. And of course, we got the American, we're friendship, American and South Korean flag together, though. So these are jackets that our unit made, or some of us made, when we were stationed in South Korea. They're very popular. You'll see some veterans buy jackets like these.
All right, thank you for doing this.
Okay. All right.